Alright, so how is everyone doing out there? Hopefully everyone's doing okay with the latest tsunami warning scare we had here in Hawaii. Between the several warnings that we've gotten on our phones and that really bad traffic on that day, it was a pretty interesting 6 to 7 hours here in Hawaii. And given that there's been some time that's passed between that event and now, I thought I would reflect back on how I think we did as a state. And so I wanted to award grades, kind of like in school, right? School's coming up here in Hawaii. Kind of award grades and rate how the state of Hawaii did government-wise, as well as talk about the local media coverage. And at the end, I wanted to share my thoughts just as a regular local here, born and raised, but also living here with my family. If you're not familiar with what happened this past week, there was a tsunami warning for the entire state of Hawaii. There was an earthquake off of the coast in Russia, and that happened around 1:30 p.m. Hawaii time. And from there, we got an estimate that at about 7:15 p.m. later Hawaii time that evening, the first waves would potentially hit the state. A lot of people got to go off of work early. There were a bunch of sirens, lots of really bad traffic, and at the end of the day, nothing really happened. But that's actually a good thing in cases like this. First, let's talk about the government response. How would I rate what the government did, state and county officials? Now, I would actually rate them an A. Now, I know you're probably thinking, bruh, you crazy. You think the government would do something that good? Yes, I actually think they did a good job this time around. And I think it's okay to say that and to give them credit for when I think they are actually doing a good job. They communicated frequently, it was very clear, maybe sometimes a little bit too much, but in cases like this, it's actually better that they over communicate than under communicate because we don't know what's going on. And I gotta say, it's good to know that our emergency text message and phone system was up and running because, brother, they get plenty of alarms that day. Because unlike with hurricanes, tsunamis, they don't give you that much time to prepare. I mean, you kind of go run Costco and load up on toilet paper and rice and Spam and buy one generator and then go home. Like, there's no time because we're not talking about days here, we're talking about hours. And so really it's just a matter of evacuating out of the coastal area to just get somewhere safe. And in terms of government responsibility, it's not just us locals here. We have a lot of visitors, a lot of tourists, some who don't speak English. They don't know what's going on. And so to be able to communicate to them as well, I think it's really important and a lot that they have to consider when it comes to natural disasters or emergencies. I would definitely say for next time though, I think the government needs to be ready with what exactly the instructions are and make it very simple for people to understand. Obviously they had the warning signs that, hey, this could potentially come 7 o'clock. But I think what ended up happening in that message of just get somewhere safe was, okay, everybody just go home. And because of that, the traffic was horrendous. I mean, it was pretty bad in town. It took my wife over an hour to go to our son's preschool, pick him up, and then come back home. That trip, if I had walked it, would have taken maybe 30 minutes max, maybe 30 minutes. But the traffic was so bad in just this area, being in downtown, it's like, oh my gosh. But again, that's because the initial reaction for everyone and what seemed to be communicated was, okay, everyone, just go home. And I understand that it would seem like the traffic jams and the congestion is the government's fault. But actually, I think it exposes something even more. It's an infrastructure issue that we have here in Hawaii. It was like the Maui roads 2 years ago. It's the issue that they have up in North Shore. It's just that Hawaii doesn't have a lot of infrastructure when a lot of people gotta get somewhere quick. For example, let's talk about Kapilani Boulevard. That's a huge street. The reason why it's so critical in this is because for a lot of people, that's their way that they're gonna get onto the freeway. So you got 3 lanes on Kapilani Boulevard going westbound. Then you got these guys that gotta turn up Alapai Street, which in and of itself is a mess because when you get next to Beretania Street, you gotta turn left. But the issue is you gotta get into the extreme right lane. The problem is you got all these guys coming down Beretania and they're also trying to get into the right lane. Why? Because they all gotta turn from one lane. They all gotta turn right up Punch Bowl to then cross Vineyard to then go onto the freeway. And that is a complete mess. It's already a mess when there's no natural disaster or emergency. But you throw all of this stuff going on and everyone leaving work at the same time, and this panic that sets in, it is just really bad. And so when I take that traffic issue out of the equation, because I really can't blame the government, that's not their fault, then what I see or what's left was actually a pretty good system. Again, maybe making it a little bit clearer for what people should do by having like a simple graphic that just says like, or a list of like, okay, here's the things that you need to do. Not just, okay, everybody just panic, go home. I think we had this mindset, us local people, like, okay, natural disaster, okay, boom, we just gotta run home. So the communication was good, but I think trying to just communicate that message a little bit better probably would go a long way next time. But let's talk about the news media. How did they do? I'd actually rate them a C grade, maybe even I don't want to say B plus, but a C. Now, obviously, they play a very important role in getting the message across to the public. People are on their phones. They have all the social media posts, as well as live stream and whatever is on TV. So they obviously play a very important role in getting information out to locals, to visitors, to everyone, to the world. But sometimes I think they can add unnecessary stress to what's actually going on. I mean, you definitely don't want to downplay the seriousness of what's happening, but as I'm watching both the live stream online on my phone as well as on the TV, I'm watching a different channel, I'm like, boy, these guys do not seem like they are ready for this. Because I think there's a big difference between informing the public and presenting the news and then adding your own personal commentary or interpretation. And I get it. They didn't expect to have this thing happen on that day, and what was normally a weather broadcast that's like, I don't know, 4 minutes in a regular newscast is now stretched out to 8 hours, right? So how do you fill all that time? You got so many eyeballs on you. People are watching, they're interested now. So how do you keep them on your channel? But I think, like the government, they need to be prepared more with things to say. A lot of things that they were talking about, I mean, I understand you're just trying to fill time, but I didn't see how it was quite relevant to what we're doing. I remember one newscast, one channel, they were talking about the history of all of the tsunamis that hit Hawaii. And they had a huge map, and they're talking about the location of the origin of the earthquake, and then where it came from, talking about percentages of where the tsunamis are coming from, talking about the history of it. There was even this graphic that they showed where this was like, okay, this is how a tsunami works. Okay, so it had like almost like a side view of like the ocean and the sand, and you could see it, and it was like the graphic would move up, and the person's trying to explain what a tsunami is, because for regular people, I think we're all thinking huge wave, right? Like this is gonna be like a like the kind you see up at North Shore, gonna be like 100-foot wave or something, right? But no, it's a little bit different when you're talking about like tsunami wave with the receding and then the flood coming. So it's a little bit different, but this person was trying to explain it to us, and I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, like they really need to fill this time, I guess. And then there was a weather person who, I guess in real time, they thought it was a good idea to watch the wave heights. I guess there's data being collected by buoys, and it's like minute by minute, or I don't know, every 5 minutes, and it would show like the change in the height. So I guess this person was like watching it live, and they were just commenting like, oh, it went up a little bit, like a small amount. He goes, oh, it went up. Was that the first wave coming? Are we about to be hit? And that's the kind of stuff that I feel like is more for like a Facebook live stream and not like a newscast. Because especially if that person is not familiar with even how to read like a wave chart, again, I don't. But if they're not familiar with that, I don't know if it would be proper for someone, especially like in the media, like on the news, to try to interpret that data unless they actually have the background to do it. And I think with most of the local newscasters here, maybe they can read weather patterns and other things. Maybe their specialties is more with like hurricanes in terms of natural disasters. But clearly there was hardly anybody, I think, that could broadcast and really talk about the tsunami impact, and that's okay. But I don't think that that's their job then to try to stretch their understanding of weather, meteorology, to try and figure this stuff out. Again, I'm very appreciative of what the media is doing here, but I think what really brought the grade down was when they were showing the beach right around, maybe, I don't know what time it must have been, like maybe an hour before or 30 minutes before, you know, it was supposed to, the first wave was supposed to hit Hawaii. They had these live shots of Waikiki and Kailua and these, you know, different beaches, Poipu on Kauai. But they would cut to these different shots, which is interesting. But then they started to focus on the people, like the tourists or even other locals who were at the beach, and they would just zoom in on those guys. And then the newscasters would like comment on that. They would say like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that, and some name calling, like, and I get it, right? You if you show that, you want to let people know who are watching, like, it's not okay to do that. But beyond that, I think the commentary is really not for TV. It's not for a news station to make. Again, you want to do an Instagram live, you want to do a Facebook broadcast, go at it, right? Like if it was just someone like a layperson like myself, we're just, you know, looking at these guys, what are these guys doing? You know, bro, these guys want Lolo or what? You know, like that's okay, I think, from a casual individual person showing stuff. But when you're like the news, it just didn't look professional. I liken it to, let's say there's a TV broadcaster talking about traffic, right? So this person's talking about traffic in the morning or the afternoon, and they cut to, you know, cameras of the freeway, and you see all the cars going by, and you can see the heavy traffic, like it's pretty bad, right? Or there's an accident or something like that, and they just point it out. A regular news reporter, I think, should just report, okay, look, there's an accident here, you know, avoid this road, and that's it. So people are informed, okay, accident here, got it. But imagine if that TV reporter all of a sudden just started like commenting like, oh, you see that guy speeding over there? Yep, shouldn't be speeding over there. Or, oh, you see that person weaving in and out? Oh man, they're a crazy driver. Or, oh, I think their safety check is expired. Oh, better call the cops on these guys. Like, I think those types of things, that would just be very off-putting in a normal newscast, and that's sort of how it felt as they were focusing so heavily on the people who shouldn't be doing what they're doing. Again, they shouldn't be doing those things, but I think spending so much time on that, to me, it was very, very distracting. I will say though that the best thing that the news eventually did later in the night was talk to the director of the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. I know there's a lot of traffic. It's tough to get out there because it's Ford Island in Pearl Harbor, and traffic out of town was just horrible. All the news stations are kind of in town, but just to get out there, I'm sure it was really bad. But I'm glad that they finally talked to someone who knows what they're talking about. You know, it's their job to monitor all of this stuff. They know how to interpret that minute by minute or whatever, all the trends of the waves. They know how to interpret that. They know what to expect. They can look at historical data, but more importantly, this is stuff that they're looking at all the time. All those times that most people are just like, yeah, it's whatever. They're monitoring that stuff. So they know what they're talking about. So I'm glad they finally talked to someone who knew what they're talking about. I wish they would have got to him sooner. And maybe next time, if they can't get to him, Zoom or phone call or something, because he's really the expert who's able to explain things. And when he's explaining things, for me personally, I like it. I mean, as great as it is to hear from the governor and all these department heads and I guess the newscaster commentary, it was so nice to hear an actual expert. He's not panicked. He's very cautious to make predictions, but he's able to at least explain things, and that's part of his job, is to take all the science and stuff that he knows and to explain it to us normal people who the only time we think about tsunamis is whenever there's something on the news. So, you know, Dr. McCurry, wonderful job. They need more of him next time. Make sure to get him on speed dial and hook him up with a good Zoom studio if they need it, because I feel like they missed out in that a lot of that pre-coverage to the tsunami actually hitting Hawaii. I felt like they either bring him in studio or they need to go out to him a whole lot faster. All right, okay. Now my general thoughts as just a local person here that went through this whole experience with everybody else. I mean, everyone gonna have their opinion, and I think it's really easy for us as locals to be like, look, nothing would happen. Of course nothing would happen. Lose money. They all just waste our time, make a big deal out of it. And I will admit that local in me was thinking those things like, it's not gonna be a big deal, right? I mean, this thing's coming from the north. We're on the South Shore. They had announced that they were gonna do 3 alarms, right? 3 sirens and 3 texts on the phone. And they're gonna do it in hour increments up until like the 7:15. I was like, okay, that's cool. At least they told us, the phone went ringing off the hook. That was good communication. And when the first alarm came very early, I looked at my phone and I was like, wait, I thought they said it was gonna come at like 5:15. Well, this is like almost 3 o'clock. I'm like, wait a minute. What's happening here? And for a moment, I'll say, for a moment, I was a little bit scared because I thought, oh no, like they're not fooling around. Like this is gonna be bad. Of course, I looked at my phone. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I looked on the news, and even they were trying to figure out why they sent out an early warning sign. But in that moment, I was like, wow, we really don't know what to do here. But I think in general, this whole situation exposed that most of us locals, unfortunately, we don't know what we're doing. We when it comes to emergencies, our knee-jerk reaction is go Costco, fill up the bathtub with water, and buy flashlight and batteries, and that's it. And what's challenging in Hawaii is that we go through a lot of these emergencies, but we don't go through them, I think, enough to learn our lesson. So we go through them enough. We get occasional emergencies where we're aware of these things, so it's not a complete surprise. But the problem is we don't go through them enough and act enough on those things, like with the procedures, so that we know exactly what to do. And I think what this ends up being is building up in us sort of this false understanding on what we should be doing. And as a regular person, as a local resident, when you realize that I've been through something like this before, but not exactly the situation, you kind of start panicking. And when that panic sets in, then you start rushing, and then you get traffic and accidents, and then you get more stressed out. But like the trade winds that come and go in our island, this situation will pass. And I'm sure most people by a week, 2 weeks, they're probably gonna forget all that happened. Now, I suppose the only way we're ever gonna learn as locals on what to do in these types of situations is to go through them over and over. The issue is we don't really have practice. I mean, this isn't like back in elementary school when you have fire drills and everybody's supposed to leave all your stuff, everybody stand up nicely, you line up on your dot outside, and then you guys all walk together, close and lock the door, and you go to the field by that specific tree, and then you wait for the all clear. We don't have fire drills, we don't have practice for all this. So the only way that we actually can know what to do and go through the motions is to go through more of these. And when I look back on situations like this, I'm hoping that we learn from the mistakes that we may have made, and we see these as opportunities to better the communication, to better the processes, so that when it actually does happen, or it's gonna happen eventually at some point, all right, there'll be a bad emergency here in Hawaii, that we'll be ready. That local people know what to do, visitors know what to do, staff know what to do to help them, because we really don't want to be caught off guard. I mean, I do think about Hawaii and how vulnerable we are. We ship so much stuff here. We don't have a lot going on. Our infrastructure is fairly poor, and it really just takes one storm, and that's it. Like, it could cripple the state. And I'm thankful that I've been around long enough where there hasn't really been something that really crippled the entire state, but it could happen. And if it does happen, I want to make sure that we know what we're supposed to do, whether that's communicated from the government during that time or even before that time. And I know it's really hard to care when it's not during that time, but I wish that they would provide that kind of information. I'm sure it's up on some website somewhere, but maybe that's for me. Maybe that's my responsibility to go and seek these things so that when it is time, I don't panic. I mean, we have a light supply for hurricane season, but for tsunami, I don't know. Again, it's real easy to be like, look at all that. They got everybody worked up for nothing. That's a reaction, but I think from what I'm trying to take away from this situation is, okay, well, this exposed us and exposed, I guess, me too, on my ignorance, ill-preparedness on what exactly we're supposed to do, and so next time maybe we'll be better prepared. So let us know what you thought about this whole situation here in Hawaii. Thanks for watching, and aloha.
Hello, hello.